Hi, thanks for joining us on Just 1A with Aaron Frischberg. I'm talking to Michael Broughton, the CEO and founder of Altro. How's it going, Michael?
It's going well. I'm excited to be here. Excited to chat.
Yeah. So I was wondering, just to kind of start it off, what is your iPhone wallpaper? This is a
Oh,
fun, quick question.
good question. It is a skyline of, I believe, New York City.
Okay.
Um, I just changed it like a month ago. I change my wallpapers whenever I have a very important task that needs to get done. So whenever there's something big in my life, my wallpaper changes to reflect that season.
And what was this big thing that caused the change?
Wrapping up the year, we had a lot of like end of year sprints going into last year. I was also unfortunately sick through all of the holidays. So it felt like a wallpaper changing moment to like really every time I open my phone, I know I need to focus on the end of the year deliverables. It worked out.
Yeah. It's also a really nice thing to do. It sounds like a nice perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, it works very well if you want to try it.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. And then I was also curious, just one other fun question. If you could have a warehouse of just like an infinite number of one item, what would you have? And it would be for the rest of your life.
That's a good question. Um, Infinite warehouse. Uh, Maybe food.
Okay.
I feel like you could easily solve hunger crisis. Um, Stop destroying the earth if you have an infinite amount of food just being generated. So,
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, no,
And
great questions.
thanks. And I was wondering if you could just go through the story of Outro. I'm sure
Yeah,
you've told it a million times, but it really does sound great. I read a bit about it with Jay-Z and with your time at USC, and it sounded really great.
yeah. So the story started with myself actually going through college. I was the first in my family to really take on like a big public university like USC. I was short of my tuition, and no one wanted to give me a loan. Is the short and sweet way of saying it. It was at this moment that I realized that when it comes to credit access and truly what I call financial exclusion, which is people who are excluded from the financial market, they're excluded for two reasons. Either A, they don't have prior existing history of being a good consumer or a good financial representation of, a good credit user, honestly. Or B, um, they've never really had the pathway to becoming a good consumer, right? So these gaps really cause for people like myself and others, although, I went on to build Altro and, I feel like a lot of the people around me who once got opportunity did great things. There isn't really a pathway for you to really get there from the beginning. The best way of explaining it is if I took away your credit score, how would you, build again from stage zero? That really was the thesis. It started with me in college, and 3 years into college, it became a company, and now 3 years after that, we are kicking strong here at Ultra. So 6 years in the running so far.
That's great. And what exactly does Outro do?
Yeah, so we enable people to build credit using their everyday recurrencies. So imagine your Netflix, Hulu, Spotify bills actually helping you build your credit.
Awesome. And I was also curious, I didn't see this on the website, but um, like with just a Netflix subscription, what kind of impact would that make over like a year on your credit score?
Yeah, it really depends on your credit profile. So people who don't have credit versus people who have okay credit versus people who have great credit are going to have different impacts. What we realize is, first off, the data that we're reporting is a traditional trade line, right? So it's hitting the core systems at Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, which means that it's going to have the greatest impact it can on your credit report. That being said, people who don't have credit normally see their score jump to a 650 to a 670, which is their first time ever seeing a score. And people who are in the medium to okay range can see 50 to 80 point boost. People with great credit may see like a 10 to 12 point boost. It just really depends on where you are in your credit journey, but it's always positive. It's really hard to have a negative impact from adding more trade lines to your credit.
Yeah, that's it. It really did sound like an incredible concept when I was reading about it, and I'm really happy that you guys really are executing on it and doing a really great job.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, no, thank you. It's been a journey for sure.
yeah. I'm curious also, what was your favorite moment like throughout the founding of Altro?
There's definitely been some top moments. I think a great moment for us was the first time that we went viral. Um, we had a crazy long wait list of people trying to get into the app. And I have a video of us in this hacker house outside of USC, 6 people in a two-bedroom apartment. Um, and we sent a text. We automated a Apple script, and your phone gets blocked every time you do this. So we had like a stack of 10 phones with different numbers. We sent out the script to every like batch of 10,000 people saying you're in. You can join Altro now. And we had a Slack notification wall where it showed every time a user went through the full sign up process, put in their social security, private information, address, and really signed up for the app, and it would just start going off, right? You're just getting all these Slack notifications of all these people joining just from a simple text in that they're in, which really proved that we had something that people wanted, people needed. So
Yeah, that I'm sure that was really really incredible to see, like your real work.
a
Yeah, that
great
you.
moment indeed. It was really cool to see it like kind of come to fruition that day.
Hmm. Yeah. And then I was also curious, like, were there any really hard moments in the founding of Altro? Yeah.
Probably the next day. um, and ironically, I say that because when we went viral, I think we were a little in over our heads talking as like a realistic founder.
Mm.
Again, it was 6 people right out of college in a dorm room, or not even a dorm room, in a hacker house. Really trying to figure out this whole world of credit. And, it became a responsibility that day too, is probably why it hurt so much the next day. Is that, tens of hundreds of thousands of people that came to us saying that you can help change my life, you can help fix this system and give me the opportunity that I never had. And the moment that you don't deliver 100%, or the day that you're not a perfect startup, which no startup is the day that you really feel like you're letting people down. So I think our team really felt it as a responsibility more than just another cool startup idea. The day after we went viral, so.
Yeah. I that is really incredible. Yeah. And I was also curious, um, like, why credit? What made you focus on this in founding Altro, and like, I guess what really set your sights on it?
Yeah, I there's a number of reasons why credit ended up being where we landed. When I was first building Altro, I did not start in credit, and I knew very little of it. Honestly, I had started in cryptocurrency. I had started in hard wallets and all this random stuff that ended up landing in the world of credit. I went through 22 pivots. There is a previous name for Altro called Bitcoin, where we wanted to be able to pay people for listening to music. Just a lot of iterations. And I think what really set Ultra apart in the concept that we have now is the correlation of the problem to the solution. And I tell a lot of early founders this: the problem is 95% of your deck. It's 95% of what you talk about. It's really 95% of what you spend your time on. The 5% solution can always pivot, right? But the problem should be very stable. And when I thought about the problems I wanted to solve, everything pivoted except for credit. Credit always had the same issue, and the data is always relevant, that there are discrepancies, inequities, and biases in credit, and people don't have access. That's not changing today. It hasn't changed for the last 6 years I've been working on this. And although it's improving, the problem has really still been there. Although we pivot around this problem a lot, credit just seemed to have such a foundational truth that it needed to be solved, that building a company on top of it just sounded like a great idea. And once we had the right idea, the right solution to the problem, it became very parallel, I think in working together. So
Huh. And did you find that like setting up the infrastructure for Astro or yeah, Altro was really like tough to like work with FICO credit scores and actually like manipulate something that really everyone has?
yes, very much. And again, talk about Hacker House days. We had no idea what we were getting into. There's so much bureaucracy, regulations, and the bias and inequities are in this system for a reason. It's because it's hard to change it. And whether it's purposeful or not, it exists. And I think that the average time for a startup to launch in this space is 3 years right now. So I think again, going viral, having people want to depend on us, and us trying to go through the regulation piece of making Ultra a reality, has really been where we spent most of our time. So
Yeah. Wow. And I was also curious, like, if someone were in a similar spot to you, like founding a company or founding something kind of in a similar space to Altro, what would be your advice for them?
yeah, the biggest thing is advisory. Unfortunately, when it comes to regulations or any sort of hard tech, because I think fintech kind of falls into this world of medium to hard tech. Um, it's all about who you know, knowing the people who can sign off on pushing your product forward or the regulational piece, and even we work a lot with the government even and government entities sometimes. Um, Having the right advisory around you to know what you're building is very key. If you're building another SaaS company or a social media platform or whatever it may be, you can always just sit in a room, code it out for a couple hours, and you'll have a product at the end of the day. If it was that simple for fintech, I think we would have seen the revolution already. But you could tell, and I tell people this all the time, you could tell that revolution is so rare in this space because the simplest change to a product offering causes for $1 billion company. Example, Chime. Chime took regular banking services, put it online, and it became $1 billion entity, right? Wealthfront created what is already, typical traditional Roth and 401ks, Roths, traditional IRAs, and put it online is accessible $1 billion company, right? So I think there's a lot more pivoting happening, but for those out there, advisory is key.
Okay. Wow. And do you feel that there's like a lot of barriers for entry to creating a fintech company, like relative to other spaces, I guess?
Certainly, certainly. There's, you know, first off, the number of regulators. B, the way that you build products in the space is built off of, old infra. You can't just go out and build a bank, right? You have to build a bank on top of another bank that has a charter, unless you get your own charter, but getting your own charter is going to cost you millions of dollars in about 5 years to do. Um, and even when we saw the first fintech actually buy a charter, the OCC and other regulators came and tried to shut it down. So again, it's an uphill battle of trying to find a way in. Is really what's so hard about fintech.
Wow. Yeah. But you guys seem to have made it, so it's really great.
We're
Yeah.
we're at the end piece. I would be lying if I said we made it all the way through. I don't think you ever make it through, but we understand 95% of the way to wiggle around in this space. So
Yeah, sure. And I was curious, as someone like working in fintech, how do you feel about the recent release of ChatGPT? And do you feel like it's going to have a lot of impacts, especially in like the fintech space?
um good question. I've been following, GPT-3 and um, Sam and them's OpenAI projects since I guess I joined YC. And back in 2020, they were doing like early releases of their services. But ChatGPT and I think what AI is doing is kind of simplifying inputs by humans is the best way to put it. I think the objective is to allow the creative nurture of humans to be explored more by increasing accessibility to the easy inputs that we have to do as humans. For example, coding. A lot of coding is very binary. The moment that you can start exploring what can we do with code and have the input function of writing the code be automated, you can do way more, right? And I think the same thing plays out for many different fields. It's a battle, of course, because you're revolutionizing an industry. Um, I'm trying to think of like the best example of this. Maybe like cars, for example, right? Switching a car from a horse to an engine probably felt like you're going to kill the horse industry, but now we are optimizing car engines to make them faster. And now the same thing for electric, right? They're like, oh, now you're trying to change from electric, from motor to electric, and now you're like, okay, now the goal is just to make electric better. So I think that AI is really just trying to take those inputs, automate them, and then allow us to make them better, honestly, through creative engineering. So
Yeah. I was actually talking to someone earlier today, and he actually basically said the same thing about how it'll kind of tie into the creative aspect and how there are industries like engineering that are now like like you have creative engineers now, and you can't really be an engineer without thinking about like design and those
Yeah,
kind of aspects.
very
Yeah.
much so. Very much so.
And then how do you feel it'll impact the fintech space, like specifically?
Um, I think that one thing that's interesting about fintech is that it's a very obvious space. I think that there's been a lack of educational access. Not in the way that there's not information out there, there's information in abundance. I think executable awareness is very low. And when I say that, I mean, if you come from a family of wealth or of good credit, you will innately have good credit. It's like coming from a house that speaks two languages, right? You'll just innately know two languages. Um, but when you come from a household that only knows one language or never grew up with credit, the chances are literally almost like 90% that you'll correlate that way too. I think that what AI can do is kind of break down that information barrier, and take a 30-minute blog that is on the internet and turn it into actual executable steps, personalized to people. So, like, hey, I am at this credit score with this income level doing this job. What is the best financial scenario for me? And I think AI can open up that world of understanding what is great for your situation, which may actually break that correlation of bad credit to, family or generational cause, happening, in the current system. So
Yeah. That's a really interesting perspective. Are you saying that it's kind of gonna like democratize information and just make
I
it more
think
available?
so. Executable information too, because anybody can go on Investopedia and learn how a 401k works, but there still is a correlation between wealthy or families with knowledge having that knowledge transpire to their kids versus families who don't. So I think AI can democratize that piece for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Michael. It was really great talking to you, and I hope you have a great day.
Of course, and this is a great series. Definitely keep it running. I think you'll have some great conversations over the years.
Thank you.